You know, if there's one question I get asked more than any other, more even than how did the Headless Horseman know where he was going, that question would have to be, Mark, what film can best capture the wonder and diversity of Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam? Well, today we are going to try and answer that question. Vietnam is a fascinating and varied country that stretches nearly 1,700 kilometers from the historical north to the modern bustling south. I've only had a chance to really visit Ho Chi Minh City, but even that one city is a crucible of sights, sounds and flavours, all fused into this unique amalgam of culture and history. How can I possibly capture it on film? There is no one Vietnam and there is no one jack of all trades film stock, but today we're going to try three. Let's be honest, for most of us, when we think of Vietnam, we can't avoid its colonial history and brutal path to independence. Its 20th century mirrored the rise of photography itself, from 1900s pictorialism through the documentary 30s, post-war street photography, and the tobacco-tinged 70s to the snapshot 90s. Vietnam saw its own progression punctuated by invasion, division, and reunification, and let's see if I can portray all of that on celluloid. Starting with Lomography Lomochrome 92. This is a new version of the Lomochrome 92 designed to capture the warm nostalgia of sunny summer holidays, a more forgiving, less cool and grainy version. Lomography gave me a free roll in 120 format to try out, no expectations other than to put it through its paces and share it with you. Let's see how it handles an afternoon walk through the centre of Saigon with my Yashica 635 twin lens reflex. Okay, light and dark. Another trick, always walk on the other side of locals. Okay, so I had to get down low to capture that one. No, I don't think it's cheating to be able to put your stuff on the thing and shoot like that. The only thing is, it's getting so dark I'm having difficulty focusing, and I'm trying not to focus on the signage. I'm trying to draw back a little bit. I've got a 30th of a second at f4. I'm just going to wait for, oops, you die. Well, I need to, what, did I not wind on the last one, or did I shoot by accident? Sorry, Lomography, I let you down. I'm not sure if I truly captured Ho Chi Minh City properly or even gave the film a fighting chance. Now let's be clear here, Lomography Lomochrome 92 is not a refined professional film like, say, Kodak Portray 400. My dim, dark and distant memories of Portray, when it was affordable, is of a beautiful film suitable to commemorate an important event like a wedding. You still get that film texture, but what you're paying for is low grain and colour accuracy to faithfully preserve those memories. In a way, I'd say Lomochrome 92 captures those memories too, just not in an objectively realistic way. It stamps a bit of its own personality on them, and that personality comes straight out of the 90s. 1992 was the year Bananas in Pyjamas first aired in Australia and the year Bill Clinton was elected president. Well, the colour palette of Lomochrome 92 isn't the same concoction of unsheathed bananas and blue and white clothing, but Lomochrome 92 does have its own style. Firstly, this is a newer generation of the product, Sunkissed, and the first thing that you'll have noticed in this stock was probably how desaturated it is, but also how warm it leans in the highlights. A lot of other experimental films I've used, like One Shot 400 and Ilford Color 400, have desaturated profiles too, but often you're left with a distinctly blue cast once the other colours are drained away. Interesting look, but to me where they fail is when you try and capture skin tones. This one does a much better job. Still not accurate, quite yellow, but there's enough pink in there to breathe a bit of life into your jaundiced face. And anyway, I'd still prefer Simpsons over Smurfs, even for family snapshots, which, let's face it, is what this film is trying to emulate. Those faded prints from the 90s that are stuck to your grandmother's fridge along with the chunks of cereal that you spat out as a toddler. It's a double-edged sword. High-key images are deeply infused with the tint of a 35-year-old Apple Macintosh, and I speak from the experience of someone who has one hidden down the back of a hot garage, shrouded in crumbling bubble wrap. It makes the skies look like old linen, but they still fare a lot better than the shadows. With only 4 stops of dynamic range, you're wading through seaweed once the lights go down, and I do think those last couple of images in particular are proof positive that despite being ISO 400, it does need light. This isn't a film for nighttime shooting. Now, there's a lot you can do with post-processing to correct that. Totally legitimate too, because the vagaries of development and the darkroom printing process often require you to calibrate colour to taste. The question is though, do you want to? I didn't do it here, but as you can see, it's quite easy to compensate, steering the shadows more magenta through split toning. I definitely do it in this image simply because the green is just way too distracting. What really surprised me was just how the Ho Chi Minh City architecture seemed to replicate the characteristics of the film itself. The yellow and pink wash of the buildings, grey pavements and greenery nestle beautifully in this film's colour gamut. But it's not very tolerant of bad technique. And when it comes to bad technique, that's what you get with my videos, and I can't promise that'll ever change. But you may as well like and subscribe anyway, right? Maybe Lomography deliberately wanted me to test drive it like Paul Walker, or they just didn't know what they were getting into. But if not a total crash and burn, then I think it's fair to say that this one skidded into the boundaries. I mean, yeah. Double exposures always plague me when I pick up this camera after not having used it for a while, and I've documented previously how I'm inadequate to the task of using the Yashica 635. But failure is fun, and there is one more actually quite interesting example of that to come. In any case, while I do think the pink and yellow pastel tones definitely capture the built environment of Saigon quite well, Vietnamese life is much more vibrant and saturated. So let's see if we can view this remarkable city through another lens. I mean, not literally, we're still using the Yashica 635, but the next day I loaded it with a much more classically colourful film, Lomography 400. For these final two rolls, I figured I'd retrace my steps from a previous trip to Ho Chi Minh City, where I visited Reunification Palace. This was the wartime palace of the South Vietnamese president, and in many ways a symbol of Vietnam progress, both its eruption onto the modern stage as well as the western excesses of the decadent south of the country. Now it's a mid-century modern time capsule and the perfect MacGuffin for this Saigon side quest. "12 more shots, and I think it's fair to say that Lomography 400 is all-round a much more predictable and less experimental film than the Lomochrome Sunkissed 92. I've used it before and I've always liked it. There aren't that many colour negative options for 120 film out there other than Kodak, and while Kodak Gold does provide its own distinctive colour palette, and Portray is by far the go-to film stock for neutral colours, they both provide a very familiar look. Lomo 400 is a far more energetic film. Like Lomo 92, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it doesn't like underexposure so much, but then that's a pretty sturdy branch to hang off. You can make that claim about most colour negative films. There is something different about this one though. The greens and reds just seem to pop out of the screen in a way that I find quite appealing. It manages to be characterful without being experimental. It's consistently fun, if that makes sense. Certainly its colours match the energy of the city and probably provide the best corollary of modern Vietnam. But let's not ignore the gritty history of the country and in particular the goal of this journey, Independence Palace. We're grinding the streets to build the XP needed to face the grimmest part of Vietnam's modern history. While the technology of the 60s and 70s meant that in many ways the Vietnam War was the first conflict that brought images into the living rooms of the world, in many respects, this building to me encapsulates everything the war was about. Vietnamese design, but very much in a Western style, this was modern, luxurious, and represented everything that was anathema to the North. It was a living beacon of the West influence in South Vietnam, forming the president's home and base during the conflict. Once the presidential palace, the storming of the gates by a T-54 tank in April 1975 effectively ended the war, and it's now preserved forever, alternately referred to as Independence or Reunification Palace. There are lots of famous photos of the Vietnam War, and colour was around then. In fact, Kodak Aerochrome was used by the US military, its false colours allowing them to distinguish between the chlorophyll of vegetation and human-made structures. But when we think of the Vietnam War, it's hard to imagine it in anything but monochrome. Black and white, it just strips everything back to the raw bones of an image. I'm not going to show the infamous Napalm Girl photo here, though it's a pretty salient reminder of what humans are capable of doing. But the pared back nature of black and white can sometimes reveal the structure of a photo and draw your attention to the highlights, shadows and shapes in the frame. So for this final leg to Independence Palace, what better film to use than Ilford XP2 400? Yes, I know it's technically a colour film since it uses the C41 process, but it's fine-grained, sharp and fast enough for me to use with a realistic aperture and shutter speed. We have reached our destination. We have completed our journey to Reunification Palace, Independence Palace, Liberation Palace. It's still a palace. $250th F11 surely. And that's pretty much it because I'm not going to buy a ticket.
Em ơi, có vé cho em ơi. Đâu? Mới đi ra hả? Họ mới đi ra không chịu tỉnh lại. Theo cái dọc dọc cái sân á, cứ làm vậy là chỉ là nó. Không biết tại tỉnh nào.
Three rolls of film all over a couple of days, strolling through the Saigon streets and honing in on Independence Palace to symbolise the complex history of this fascinating city. And all with my own mid-century marvel, the Yashica 635 TLR. If there was a weak point in the quest, it was definitely the camera, or at least my ability to operate it. Yes, there were a few fluffs along the way. The most obvious issue was actually remembering to wind the film on. I do try to do it straight after I've taken a photo when I'm on the street, so I'm ready for the next capture, but of course, if I forget, then I just end up with a double exposure. Sometimes they actually work. I really love this image, and I think it's because there's enough color contrast to distinguish the people from the less saturated cityscape, and I do think it captures something of the chaos of the streets. Most of the time, well, there's happy accidents, and then there are just accidents. Of course, the one thing you were saved were the blank frames where I had forgotten I had wound the film on. Other than that, though, once I had fully reacquainted myself with the quirks of the TLR medium format system, the Yashica proved to be a very capable device. It's not a Rolleiflex, but this gets you 90% of the way there for a lot less money. And to me, anyway, none of these cameras are perfect devices. They're all a bit soft in the corners, wide open, and still providing bags of detail where you need it. And the final results with the Yashica are just pleasant and characterful as any pretender to the greatest TLR crown. The weak link, honestly, it was me, and I don't think I came away with enough keepers from the Lomochrome 92 to truly show it off. Maybe I should have just shot that roll at the end once my muscle memory had finally kicked in. Still, I think we can find 6 square frames to distill the essence of Ho Chi Minh City into a manageable meal, and what do you think? For the Lomochrome 92, I ended up settling on this one as it was representative of the pastel hues of the film and a bit more organic than this other one. I like the Saigon sign, but the image itself is just a bit sterile. For the Lomo 400, my eyes were drawn to the popping teals and reds that the film accentuated. Sometimes you can just end up with a nice balanced frame with lots of interest, and I think this one represents that nicely. Lots of small details. Another nicely balanced one here. Chilling on scooters between courier jobs seems to be a common Ho Chi Minh pastime. And the other half of the images are all black and white. And look, I'm not sure if it's just because it was the final roll and I dialed in the spaghetti that sits between my eyes and my fingers, or I just love the starkness of monochrome. I had to include Independence Palace, even though it's totally unsuited to a square format. It's the exact opposite of the spontaneous moment caught here with the kid on a tricycle. Most likely he will grow up to be a scooter rider like everyone else seemingly in the city. And finally, one that does seem to say something about Saigon, even if I'm not quite sure what. I nearly included this one, but really, how many recumbent riders do you need? Perhaps this one instead manages to communicate some of the aspirational energy of Vietnam, rising out of the refuse of a tortured 20th century. Does that represent the essence of Ho Chi Minh City? Well, sorry if you're expecting some grand statement here, but if there's one conclusion we can draw, maybe it's that there is no essence. Firstly, the very word is reductive, and secondly, essence, isn't it just a distilled concoction of multiple flavors? If you look at vanilla extract, it's made of vanillin, guaiacol, eugenol, vanillic acid, anisyl compounds, and of course, let's not forget 4-hydrobenzaldehyde for those almond undertones. And that's just plain vanilla. Who knows what they put into pink bubblegum flavored ice cream? The point I'm trying to make is that perhaps it's best not to try and pin the diverse and fascinating history, present, and future of Ho Chi Minh City down to any one thing. And then, how can you represent all of that with just one film? I'm sure you have a favorite, and do let me know in the comments, which did you prefer? The creamy faded elegance of Lomo 92, the fresh juicy fruit flavors of Lomo 400, or the gritty salt and pepper of Ilford XP2? Lomo 92 is a restrained, elegant tea party of a film. Think ivory-coloured tablecloths and crisp doilies, delicate bone china and shortbread biscuits. A stark contrast to both the vibrance of Lomo 400 and the incisive austerity of XP2. From faded colonialism through the trauma of war to the excitement of a rapidly developing 21st century metropolis, they're all aspects of this amazing city. And maybe, just maybe, all three films are worth a place in your film fridge. Later.